Hi everyone. Today we have with us Professor Antonio Nanni. Watch this full video and ask your questions in the comments below. He has promised to answer as many questions as possible in part 2. So what are you waiting for? Watch this video and ask your questions in the comment section below. Hi, welcome to a talk series where FiBAR introduces industry professionals or researchers with the market of India. Today we have with us Professor Antonio Nanni. Could you start by telling about your journey? What do you do in the field of construction material and civil engineering?
Kerke, good morning to you, and thanks for having me today on your podcast. As you indicated, I'm Tony Nanni. I'm a faculty member at the University of Miami. You see it from my background. I've been in this business of academics for almost 40 years now. And as you obviously know, my passion is reinforced concrete with composite materials. So I'm delighted to be with you today to speak about a little bit of my experience that again spans almost 4 decades in this great space of constructed facility that I think really make the difference for our societies.
That's great. What inspired you to focus on materials like GFRP or pursue your career in it?
My journey with composites started when I was a faculty member at Penn State, and I had the great opportunity to visit Japan on a academic leave. I did work for a company called Mitsui Corporation at that time, and that's where my passion for going beyond the, let's say, the traditional started. In those days, we were looking primarily at aramid fibers as pre-stressing elements for concrete, and then we transitioned to repair rehabilitation with externally bonded FRP materials. And then finally to the topic I think of today, which is internal reinforcement with primarily glass FRP bars. So a long journey that took me from Japan all the way back to the United States, where I hope I've made some reasonable contribution not only to the R&D field, but also the development of standards and specifications that are key for the deployment of new technology. This was 1990, so probably you were not even born then, but so it's a long journey. And actually after a year in Japan, I got so excited that I went back for another year. In those days, in the early 90s, the construction industry in Japan was really leading, not only in terms of very famous construction corporation, but also innovation, and in particular, this emphasis on non-metallic materials. So very exciting times that then have transitioned in where we are today with, just having the composites part of our industry, full-fledged, not only in the new construction, but also in the repair rehabilitation, where I think now they have the biggest share of the market, at least in the United States.
Could you share some key projects that utilized GFRP rebars in your career?
So my role in these projects has been more sometimes as a consultant, sometimes as a pro bono reviewer. But I think the ones that are dearest to my heart, and not necessarily the largest, are based in Florida. And I think they are really part of what also our Department of Transportation, Florida DOT, has kind of given us the opportunity really to demonstrate these technologies. A few years ago, 5 years ago plus, we had the opportunity to participate in the construction of the first bridge in the state of Florida that was making use of composites as total part of the structure. And then followed that another bridge in Broward County, where we had the opportunity to test the composites both in the substructure as well as superstructure. And then finally, a small bridge on the campus of the University of Miami, where for the first time we did the auger cast piles that were very interesting using composite materials. So again, small projects in a sense, not iconic from a perspective of the challenge, structural challenge, but certainly the first ones that hopefully have led to much larger commercial application. Oh yes, okay, this is another great project that the Florida DOT obviously started. We participated with one of our students in doing some monitoring of the construction. Is what we would define a seawall made with piles that are known as a technology as secant piles. So fundamentally it was a 5,000 linear feet of seawall in the city of Flagler Beach to protect the seaside and protect A1A, which is the route also very important for evacuation. The construction was completed on time, very successful, less than 4.5 months. At that time was the largest use of GFRP rebars in the country, over 1.5 million linear feet of rebar, obviously. And what happened that you indicated, 3 years after the completion of the construction, another hurricane unfortunately struck the peninsula, Hurricane Ian, and obviously hit that area, but the seawall resisted, very, very well and became exposed, but totally protected the A1A route and is a testament to the excellence design that the engineer performed and then obviously the contractor executed. So an extremely good example of engineering and construction.
So I think the nature has tested GFRP bar here.
Absolutely, and actually that test, even though we did not ask for it, I think the testimony and the outcome of this indicates that we as, let's say, technical people can address sometimes rather intelligently the challenges that, natural events, unfortunately, test us with.
Have you been part of any projects that are in South Asia or Indian subcontinent per se?
Okay, so this it's probably one of the areas of the world that have not been very active. I think the opportunities there are as extreme as in terms of importance as in other parts of the world. India as a subcontinent is subject to very major natural challenges that are related obviously to subtropical type of environment, high moisture, presence of salt in the atmosphere, and so on and so forth, and other factors very important, depletion of natural resources, particularly aggregates. So I think that even though I've not been involved directly in any project in the subcontinent there, I'm aware of this issue, and I think that the interest in GFRP as internal reinforcement to address some of these issues is really the right thing to do. Again, GFRP will not substitute steel in every structure. That would be not only unreasonable, but also stupid. Steel is a blessing of God, but I think in applications where we are challenged by environment, for example, get rid of corrosion, or we have to use materials that are non-traditional. For example, sea sand, sea water in the mixture, then recycled concrete aggregate. These are all great reasons to replace conventional steel with GFRP reinforcement. So they made me aware of this very interesting project in Bangladesh that is related to the generation of renewable energy, especially in this case, solar energy. So the idea there, I think, that is promoted by the Bangladeshi government is to build fundamentally let's call it a new island. And then obviously because you are in the vicinity of the sea. You're in the sea, actually. Obviously, the presence of the chlorides in the water would obviously make deterioration of concrete happen. And so I think that the use of GFRP in this case is almost a necessity. Also, the idea is to use some local aggregate, sea sand, for example, without having to wash it. So I think this would be a very interesting and intelligent application for two reasons. One, we address issues of sustainability from an energy generation perspective, and the other one is we use materials that would allow us to extend the durability of the infrastructure. So I think, to me, if you allow me to digress a little bit, the sustainability is really the engine of what we're attempting to do. Sustainability means not only extend the life of the structure, but also be intelligent with respect to its applications. And again, the use of what I define sometimes non-conventional materials. Seawater being one, not that seawater is unknown to humankind, but seawater as a mixing water for concrete could be alleviating many of the problems that we face in many parts of the world. And obviously maybe more arid area, not in your subcontinent, but certainly of great interest worldwide.
All right. I think this is a good point that you mentioned, that we can use seawater while using GFRP. It is very interesting. Coming to the structural consultants who are actually going to take the decision of using GFRP, do you have any advice on what to use for designing with GFRP per se?
Actually, this is an excellent question. We try to create some context about it. If I think of the three pillars of a project, we have the owner, obviously, we have the designer, and we have the contractor. Sometimes the most difficult professional to convince about the use of innovation is the engineer. The engineer is not, let's say, anchored to tradition, but the engineer needs to learn new tricks, if you wish, when we talk about innovation. So I think the convincing the engineers that this is a great technology is very important. Also because engineers have an incredible duty, that is that one of designing according to codes, right? To ensure the safety of the public. One thing is to advocate innovation because it's important to humankind, but on the other side, engineers have the duty of design safe structures. So I think the engineers need to become more engaged in this process of innovation and have the ability not only to design with traditional, but also with new materials. Luckily, as let's say technical society, and in particular the American Concrete Institute, an organization extremely dear to my heart, we have made very significant progress in developing codes and specifications that would help the engineer implementing these technologies. So I think engineers need to really embrace them. I recognize the difficulties sometimes, and also the engineering profession today uses technologies, software, for design, and also these software houses hopefully will deploy very soon, design algorithms and design software that can help the engineering community.
So are there any designing software or designing books, designing codes that you recommend to the structural consultants today?
Okay, so without, obviously, here is for transparency. I don't sell these things, and I'm only part of, let's say, the R&D community. I would say from a perspective of tools that are fundamental to a professional, an engineer, I think you have to look at two organizations, in particular, the American Concrete Institute and ASTM. ACI has issued in 2022 a code, we call it 440.11-22, that allows the engineer to design according to the principles that are obviously very well established, but using GFRP as reinforcement. AECI also has a document that is a construction specification. So you have the two tools, you can design and you can build. And then if you look at ASTM, ASTM has in particular two material specifications, ASTM D7957 and ASTM D8505, that allow the manufacturer to make GFRP bars according to this specification, and obviously for the specifier to specify this material. So these are very, very important tools. There is other organization, I don't want to make a list. Our colleagues in Canada, for example, are doing great things. Our colleagues in Europe, if you look at the Eurocodes, but I think in my mind, there is a little edge here in terms of, let's say, North American, let's say, documents that can help the designer. The other question that you pose is, are there private organizations developing software? I know of one, Altair, that has started this process. So I think they will soon catch up and they will provide the designers with the tools that they need. Some of the manufacturers of the GFRP bars are also deploying their own design methodologies, which can help, but I think this is more of a commercial aspect than, let's say, broad for any engineering community.
I would like to know, what do you think is the future of GFRP industry?
Again, in full disclosure, you can say that I'm a great fan of this technology. Obviously, I spent my life in not necessarily promoting this material system, but trying to create the knowledge necessary for its deployment. I think that you are at the cusp of, in a sense, a revolution. And I think the primary reason is this sustainability thrust. We need to address the problem of climate change. We need to address the issue of making structures last longer and use materials that make sense, trying not to deplete all the natural materials that we have. And so I think that composites have a niche where they can make a dramatic difference. I think some of the benefits, I mentioned it, one that I did not mention is the lightweight. Having a material that is 1/4 the weight of the steel has implications in terms of not only transportation, but also constructability. Think of the use of cranes, think of manpower. If you have to manipulate rebars that weigh 1/4 that of the traditional one, obviously the implication on your health and your back are significant. So I think that the future is extremely bright. What we need to bring to the table perhaps is a more unified industry. The manufacturers of composites, and in particular rebars, have to think more of as an industry, not as a bunch of competitors trying to obtain a share of the market. So I think the future is extremely bright. I see interest all over the world, including your region. So I'm very excited to spend a few minutes with you this morning. If I can be of help, I'm here. And again, I think that together we will make a difference, definitely, towards a better and more sustainable infrastructure.
Interesting.
FRP rebar बोले तो FiBAR।